How did you get started
Yeah.
in the industry?
My first job was as a caseworker first, and then I was running a foster care unit. And I quit my job with no backup. I'm like a single mom. And then I spent 5 months trying to figure out like what is it that I exactly wanted to do, and wrote this list. And I came into like buying and planning for
Mhm.
retail. And then from there, I started on the sales floor at Macy's, and then I left there, kept progressing in my field. So, interested in like being a big time buyer. Like that was my
Right.
goal at the time.
Really cool. So basically, you didn't have any formal training. You taught yourself. Cool. What kind of clothing company did you start?
So I had a clothing company called Closet Freak, and I was doing my own designs. I had hired a seamstress, and I also repurposed, deconstructed vintage clothes.
What was the transition into Beauty Boom?
I had my first business when I was like 13 years old. It was I used to go organize and get rid of people's clutter.
Right.
And I got into styling because a lot of people, they like the way I dressed, I guess. First, I had went into doing like workshops and styling. That didn't really sit with me. And then I decided to transition into Beauty Boom in honor of my grandmother. I decided to use her name. So her nickname was Beauty and her maiden name was Boone. And I was like, it would be really cool to have that as a name in honor of her. I started off very broad with Beauty Boone. First it was like, it was lifestyling. I had coined this phrase about lifestyling, and then I was doing, helping people with their businesses. And then I started scaling down. But even today, I am looking to change the direction of Beauty Boom because it doesn't 100% fit where I am today and the impact that I could probably make to other people.
So where's it going now?
I feel like I want to move more into doing workshops, helping people to be better about their business. Well, also, I haven't neglected my creative side so much. I want to tap back into some of these creative aspects. So it's, whether it's me maybe finally releasing the documentary that I pitched back in 2017,
What's that about?
really being part of the global majority, definitely Black in the retail field, and the impact that it had on people's lives and careers. Because myself, I was considered a very high performer, but I never got past like a senior manager position. And a lot of times it was simply because of this. I literally
Yes.
had people leaders in brands tell me that they would not give me a position because they couldn't have a Black person represent this business. And my career didn't progress the way I felt like it should because of it. I mean, I had direct reports who were not part of the global majority, and I mentored them and trained them, and they became VP. So I know that I have the capability. I know that I made these businesses money, but I could never get over like this hump. And a lot of that messes with you. I felt like these stories needed to be told. I felt like there were people that had lost so much mentally, emotionally, fiscally, because of what they experienced in these brands. And I really I do want to somehow bring those stories to light.
So, how do you stay encouraged with those experiences?
Definitely any place that did not honor me or respect me, I left. I literally
Yes.
had people leaders in brands tell me that they would not give me a position because they couldn't have a Black person represent this business. I ended up quitting my job, and I had been wanting to leave this place for so long because I was dealing with so much racism. It was getting to the point where it was impacting my mental health.
Right.
And it took me a year to really like shake that stuff off and realize that that had nothing to do with me. It was them healing. So it took me some time, grounding myself in my own rituals. I like to work out. Like there were things that I had to do, therapy, because sometimes these people are out here to destroy you. And it's like, you think that you're strong, but you don't realize that once you put your sword down, after you stop being the warrior for 20 something years, that you're like, oh, I'm really messed up. Like there's something that I need to work on because they got me questioning my self-worth.
They think you are going to stay in that abusive situation until they sell you to the next plantation.
Right. And I don't have Stockholm syndrome. This is not Beauty and the Beast. Like, I'm not doing that.
If somebody wanted to get into the
Mhm.
retail buying
Mhm.
aspect of it, what like pointers would you give
I
them?
think that if you're a person that loves retail, fortify yourself, like really stand in who you are, in the skill sets that you bring. I think one of the things that really helped me in that industry was I was curious, I was inquisitive, I was big on understanding the business in totality and other people's roles and how that impacted mine and vice versa. And to know that whatever you want to do today, you don't have to stick with that for 5, 10, 15 years. Like,
Right.
I want to do something different sometimes every 5 years, sometimes every 2 years. Like, it's not permanent. All of this is temporary. And if something is not working for you, you don't have to suffer. And you don't have
Right.
to suffer in silence. You
Mhm.
can get up and go because there's just way too much opportunity out here for us to stay and suffer in one place. So understand your worth, make sure you understand the marketplace that you're in. Don't rely on your employer to educate you. You go and you train yourself or get that education. To this day, I still take a workshop every month or something for a refresher, or I have some subscription where I'm doing e-learning or whatever. I think that that's very important to keep learning and keep growing. And be clear about the impact that you want to have in the spaces that you are in, because you may know how to do the job, but if you don't know how to navigate and you don't know how to take care of yourself or to ask for help or to learn how to grow, then you'll be reliant and dependent on them and stuck.
Like, what services are you offering now for your clients?
So I do strategic planning, creative planning with them. I do analytics, building reports, training. I definitely want to move more into helping people be better in their roles if they're choosing to be a solopreneur, entrepreneur, or even if they're wanting to go into the retail field, that I can offer some sort of guidance and what, my own skill sets to help propel that person. And I think people need to know that they're not alone in what they're experiencing in these fields, and that you can talk about it without having the fear of like losing your livelihood, right? Because if you can't go work for a brand, but you have all these other brands that you could be partnering and working with, they don't have to be these department stores or these specialty stores.
Right.
We have us.
So how do you find staying true to yourself and in this social media world?
Well, I'm actively in that pivot because I had started posting and then I just stopped. So when it comes to my business pages on social media, there's probably been like almost a year since I've posted. It's interesting. I get most of my clients or projects through word of mouth. So, and I'm making more money than I ever had. Which is interesting, right?
Right.
So right now I feel like I'm still intact because I haven't really delved so deep in putting my stuff out there on social media. I'm nervous about it. Also I'm very vocal about speaking up about things that are happening in the world, at least on my personal page. And even though my personal page is private, there are still people who are following me there that if they don't like something that I say, and I'm not going to stop saying it, like that could totally impact my business. So I know that if I'm taking a stand for anything, there's always a potential that is going to impact. And really existing is, as a Black woman, it does that on its own.
It's so crazy. Just by you being who you are, you're offending someone else.
Letitia did a talk about being an introvert at work, and you touched on, somebody in that talk touched on that exact thing. They're uncomfortable with you being comfortable with yourself. And I tell people all the time, the one thing Black people want the most, we want to be left alone.
It's just I'm being me, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Right. And I tell my kids that I teach all the time, if you need to be by yourself, then you tell me this is not the day that you want to sit with everybody else, and we will find a spot for you to work by yourself, because I don't think you should be forced to socialize. Everybody is not on all the time.
You can say that, and introverted people do understand understand that you do need quiet time. You need place, to recharge. I think the majority of people are extroverted. Most people are just like, what do you mean you don't want to hang out? And they think something's wrong. It's like, no, nothing's wrong.
Right. And most of us are that oxymoron where we straddle both lines, because I can go out and I can talk about fearless threads till I'm blue in the face. When I get in the car, I want silence.
Yes.
I'm gonna need a day to recover, and it's a fine line, especially being a business owner.
Yeah. I mean, I know when I was working in some of these brands, I would experience, they would like to go out after work, and it's like, no, I want to go home. And people would peg you as like, oh, she's not social and this. And it's like, no, I'm actually social when I want to be, but I was just with you guys for 8 hours. Why am I going to spend another hour? I literally have a family at home that I would like. Some brands that I worked at, it was fine, right? They didn't hold that against me. And then there were other places that it would pop up in my review. And I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me.
Like, I don't come to work to be social.
No.
I come to work to work.
I always say, because it's like I have a family, and you're right. I spend 8 hours there doing whatever, but I always say I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do all this stuff. So it's just like, what am I going to do? Sit there and look at you?
There was like some Christmas parties, and I watched these people get disgustingly drunk and not be held accountable for it. But if it was one of us, forget about it. Oh, did you see? And it was just so interesting to see that. And yeah, they are sitting up there scrutinizing, you and who. I don't want to be a part of that. I
remember when we first. So I had been hybrid for years before COVID started. I've been hybrid, right? And so when COVID started, they're like, "Oh, you have to turn on your camera, and you have to do this, and you have to do that," right? And so I had set my camera up on a blank wall. There was nothing behind me, no pictures, no post, nothing. White wall, looked like I was in an asylum. Right? And I sit in this pink chair, and they couldn't find anything else to look at. And one day the discussion actually turned to my pink chair because that's all they could see. And I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Are you kidding me? This is why there is a white wall, but I kept one wall because my house is very, you've been in my house. My house is very well decorated. My house very well, it looks like an artsy person lives here. They will never see that. Yeah. They found out I had a business. They hunted me down at one of my pop-ups one day.
Really?
To see, yes. Yes. Yeah. They hunted me down at one of my pop-ups one day because they wanted to know because I don't share these things. Yeah. We're not friends. I tell them all the time, we are colleagues. We are not friends. We are not. And I don't apologize for it.
So how do you keep your privacy and your integrity with yourself and still put yourself out there for, your clients, the world to see?
I think the key is to curate your social media to your brand, right? You don't know what else I do. All you know is what I show you.
Right.
You don't like it? Unfriend me. Thanks for joining us. I'm Letitia Winston of Keeping Your Stitches, along with Naima Dozier of Fearless Threads, Zahia of Regent Design and Cover Me Chic, and Izetta, our special guest today from Beauty Boom. Thanks, you all.